My wife abandoned me with a note and took $15,000 of our savings. Months later, she came back begging for shelter because her new boyfriend scammed her. But my response left her broken, and now she faces custody she never saw coming. I'm 34 years old. I work in digital marketing for a mid-sized company, and I still can't believe this happened to me. I mean, these things happen to other people, right? You see them in movies or read about them online, but you never think you're going to come home on some random Tuesday and find a note from your wife saying she's leaving. But here I am, trying to process all of this while my 5-year-old daughter asks me every night when mommy's coming back, and I honestly don't know what to tell her, because the truth is, I'm not even sure if I want her to come back anymore. I guess I should start at the beginning. My name is Nathan. I married Vanessa about 7 years ago, maybe a little more, and I thought we had a pretty normal life. You know, nothing spectacular, but not bad either. We met at a mutual friend's party when I was 27, and she was 25, and we connected immediately, like that instant chemistry that makes you think you found the right person. She was working in human resources at the time. She was fun, spontaneous, always had plans for the weekend, and I was more laid back, but I liked that she got me out of my comfort zone. We got married 2 years after meeting, in a small but nice wedding at my parents' house. Nothing too elaborate because neither of us wanted to spend a fortune on a one-day party. When Chloe was born 5 years ago, everything changed, obviously, but I thought it was a good change. You know what I mean? Yeah, we stopped going out as much and the nights were more complicated with the baby crying and all that, but I was happy being a father. I loved watching my daughter grow, and I thought Vanessa was happy too. She kept working after her maternity leave, which was fine. I totally supported her, and my parents helped us a ton with taking care of Chloe when we both had to be at the office. Life was busy, exhausting sometimes, but I thought we were good, that we were a team. Looking back now, I guess I should have noticed some signs. Like about 8 months ago, maybe 9, Vanessa started being on her phone more. Like all the time checking messages and smiling at the screen. And when I'd ask her what was so interesting, she'd say nothing, just work stuff or memes her friend Danielle was sending her. And I believed her because, why wouldn't I? We'd been together for years. We had a daughter, a life we'd built. She also started going to the gym more often, which I thought was great because she'd always wanted to get in shape after the pregnancy and had never found the motivation. So I thought she was finally prioritizing her health, you know? Then there was the thing where she started complaining more about feeling trapped, that her life was just work and home and Chloe, and that she missed when she was younger and had freedom. I tried to be understanding. Told her we could organize date nights, or that she could take a weekend with her friends if she needed a break. And she'd say, yeah, maybe, but never followed through with anything. There was a conversation like 6 months ago where she told me that sometimes she felt like she'd lost her identity, that she didn't know who she was, apart from being a mom and wife. And I asked her what I could do to help, and she just said she didn't know, that it was something she had to figure out on her own. I should have paid more attention to that. I should have taken it more seriously. But anyway, the day everything exploded was a Tuesday about 4 months ago. I got home from work around 6 in the evening. I'd picked up Chloe from my parents' house like always, and when I opened the door I noticed something was off. Like the house was too quiet, and some of Vanessa's things that were normally in the entryway weren't there. Her favorite purse, her keys, that gray sweater she always left hanging on the coat rack. Chloe ran to her room to get her toys, and I went into the kitchen, and there on the table was a note written on paper torn from a notebook. The note said something like, Nathan, I need time for myself. I feel lost and need to figure out who I really am. I can't keep going like this. Please understand, this isn't about you or Chloe. It's about me. I'll call you soon. And that was it. Like 8 lines written by hand, and she didn't even sign it with an I love you or anything, just her name, Vanessa. I stood there reading and rereading that note like an idiot, hoping the words would change or that suddenly some explanation that made sense would appear. But no, it kept saying the same thing. I called her cell immediately, and it went straight to voicemail. I sent her like 20 messages asking where she was, if she was okay, what had happened, and nothing. 0 response. I went into the bedroom and sure enough, she'd taken clothes from her closet. Not everything, but quite a bit. Her bathroom stuff was gone too. Her laptop wasn't there. It was surreal, like being in a nightmare, but knowing you're awake. Chloe came out of her room and asked me where Mommy was, and I didn't know what to tell her. I said that Mommy had to go out but would be back soon. And she looked at me with those huge eyes she has and said, "Okay, Daddy." And it broke my heart because she didn't even know what was happening. She just trusted that everything was going to be okay because that's what 5-year-olds do. The next few days were total chaos. I called Danielle, her best friend from college, and she didn't know anything either. She was as surprised as I was, told me Vanessa hadn't mentioned anything at all about wanting to leave or feeling unhappy. I called her parents, who live in another state, and they had no idea either. Her mom started crying on the phone and asked me if we'd had a big fight, and I told her no, that everything had been normal, or at least I thought it was normal. My brother Gregory came to the house that first night to keep me company because I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just paced around the house waiting for Vanessa to walk through the door and say it had all been a mistake. On the third day, Vanessa finally sent me a text message, not a call, a message, saying she was okay, that she was at a hotel and needed this time, not to try to look for her. I responded, asking her to at least think about Chloe, that our daughter needed her, and she just said Chloe was better off with me for now, that she wasn't in a condition to be a mom at that moment. Can you believe it? She wasn't in a condition to be a mom, as if motherhood was something you could put on pause when it got inconvenient for you. After that week, like when I was starting to process the situation a bit and trying to establish a routine with Chloe, I noticed something weird in our shared bank account. Vanessa had withdrawn $15,000, which was basically half of our savings. She hadn't told me anything, just took it out and that was it. That made me so angry, not so much because of the money itself, although obviously it was a lot, but because it was another betrayal, another thing she'd done without even having the decency to let me know. I sent her a message confronting her about it, and she responded that it was her money too, and she had a right to use it, and technically she was right. But the way she did it was so cold, so calculated. The weeks went by and I still didn't understand what was really happening. Vanessa would send me occasional messages asking how Chloe was, but never asked to talk to her on video call or anything, just generic questions like, is she eating well or is she going to school? And I'd respond with the bare minimum, because honestly I didn't know what else to say to her. My parents were incredible during all this. They took turns helping me with Chloe. My mom would prepare meals for the week. My dad would pick her up from school when I couldn't leave work. Gregory kept telling me I needed to get a lawyer, that this wasn't going to resolve itself, but I still had this stupid hope that Vanessa was going to come to her senses and come back. Then, like 3 weeks after she left, I was on my Instagram at night after putting Chloe to bed, scrolling without thinking about anything in particular, and suddenly I see that Vanessa had posted a photo. A photo at the beach, in a new bikini I'd never seen, smiling at the camera with sunglasses, and the caption said, "Finally feeling free." I stared at that photo for like 10 minutes, feeling like someone had kicked me in the stomach. She was there, at the beach, enjoying herself like she didn't have a daughter at home wondering where her mom was, like she hadn't left a family destroyed. The comments were from her friends telling her she looked beautiful, that she deserved it, and I thought, deserved what? That photo changed something in me, like I went from being sad and confused to being genuinely angry. I decided I had to know more. I had to understand what was really happening because clearly she wasn't going to tell me the truth. I knew the password to her email because we'd always been open about those things. I'd never had a reason to distrust before, so one night I logged into her account. I know it's technically wrong, that it was invasive, but in that moment I didn't care. I needed answers. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. There were notifications from Tinder, from Bumble, from I don't know how many dating apps, messages with different men, conversations that had clearly started months ago, from before she left. One of the guys was telling her he couldn't wait to see her again, that he'd had an amazing time last time, and she was responding with heart emojis and telling him she felt the same. Another one was sending her shirtless photos, and she was telling him he looked good. It was disgusting. It was devastating, and it was clear evidence that this wasn't about her needing to find herself. This was about her wanting to be with other men. I kept investigating because I was already in, and I needed to know everything. And I found a link to a shared photo album on Google Photos. I opened it, and there were like 30 photos of Vanessa, with different guys, at bars, at restaurants, in what looked like someone's apartment. In some, she was kissing one of them, in others, they were just hugging. But all of them were recent, some even had dates from after she'd left the house. I felt physically sick. I had to run to the bathroom because I felt like I was going to throw up. And all I could think about was that this person, this woman I thought I knew, was a complete stranger to me. The next morning, I called Gregory and told him everything, and he told me exactly what I already knew but didn't want to admit, that I had to get a lawyer immediately, that I had to protect myself and protect Chloe. He recommended someone he knew, a divorce attorney who supposedly was really good, and I made an appointment for that same week. The lawyer, a guy about 50 years old named Robert, listened to me tell the whole story and was very direct with me. Told me that with the evidence I had about the abandonment and about the dating apps, I had a very strong position for custody of Chloe, that Vanessa had basically given up her rights as a mother by leaving without looking back. We started the divorce process. Robert helped me gather all the necessary documentation, the bank statements showing the withdrawal of money, screenshots of the app notifications, the photos from the shared album. It was painful having to review all that again, having to confront the reality that my marriage had been a lie probably for months. Robert explained to me that the process could take several months, depending on whether Vanessa cooperated or not, and that she would probably have to be officially served, which meant she was going to know that I was proceeding with the divorce. The following months were weird, like I was living in this kind of limbo where I was technically still married, but my wife didn't exist in my life in any meaningful way. Chloe stopped asking about her mom as much, which broke my heart in a different way because a 5-year-old shouldn't have to get used to her mom just not being there. I started taking her to child therapy because I didn't want all this to affect her more than necessary, and the therapist told me I was doing the right thing, that kids are resilient but they need support. Vanessa kept sending me occasional messages, never apologizing or explaining anything, just superficial questions about Chloe or random comments about the weather or whatever. I barely responded to her anymore. What for? There was nothing to say. She'd made her decisions and I was making mine. On her Instagram, she kept posting photos of her new free life. At bars with friends I didn't even know. On trips I don't know how she was paying for, considering she'd left her job. Then November came, and my parents invited me to Thanksgiving at their house like always, and I said yes because I wanted Chloe to have a normal celebration, to feel like we had family and traditions despite everything that had happened. My mom prepared the traditional turkey, my aunts and uncles came, Gregory was there with his girlfriend, and we were all sitting in the living room before dinner when the doorbell rang. My dad went to open it, and suddenly, I hear Vanessa's voice saying, "Hi everyone, happy Thanksgiving." I couldn't believe what I was seeing when she walked into the living room. She was there, standing there like nothing, with a bottle of wine in her hand and smiling, and Chloe ran toward her screaming, "Mommy, Mommy." And Vanessa picked her up and kissed her like she hadn't abandoned her 4 months ago. Everyone was in shock. Nobody knew what to say or what to do, and my mom looked at me with an expression that clearly said I had no idea she was coming. Turns out Vanessa had sent my mom a message that morning, asking if she could stop by for dinner, and my mom, being the good and optimistic person she is, said yes without consulting me first. Dinner was incredibly awkward. Vanessa was acting like everything was completely normal, talking about the weather, asking about the neighbors, telling Chloe about a cat she'd seen on the street, and I was sitting there feeling like I was in an alternate dimension. Gregory kicked me under the table at one point, like saying, "Hold it together, don't make a scene in front of Chloe." And he was right. I wasn't going to ruin dinner for my daughter, so I stayed quiet and ate my turkey, trying not to explode. After dinner, when Chloe was playing with my cousins in the other room, I tried to talk to Vanessa privately in the kitchen. I asked her what she was doing there, why she'd come without warning me, and she told me very casually that she wanted to see Chloe, that it was Thanksgiving and families should be together, and I told her that she'd given up the right to show up whenever she wanted, when she decided to leave without looking back. She got defensive, told me I was being dramatic, that she just needed some time, but that didn't mean she didn't love her daughter. I mentioned the dating apps, the other men, And she had the nerve to tell me that was my fault for invading her privacy, that I had no right to go into her email. The argument was getting ugly, so Gregory came in and separated us, told Vanessa that maybe it was better if she left, and she agreed, but not before going to say goodbye to Chloe, promising her she'd see her soon. Chloe was happy, hugging her mom, not understanding all the shit that was happening, and I had to stand there watching them while dying inside because I knew Vanessa was going to disappear again, and Chloe was going to be devastated. And sure enough, after Thanksgiving, Vanessa went back to her pattern of occasional messages without substance, without real attempts to see Chloe or fix anything. The weeks went by, December came, and I kept moving forward with the divorce process, meeting with Robert, signing papers, preparing myself for what was coming. I'd started to feel better, stronger, like I was finally taking control of my life again. Then, like mid-January, I get a message from Vanessa asking if we could meet to talk. Not specifically about what, just that she needed to talk to me about something important. My first instinct was to say no, that everything we had to talk about could be through lawyers. But something, I don't know, curiosity maybe, made me agree. I told her we could meet at a coffee shop near my office, a public place where there couldn't be drama. I got to the coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon, ordered a coffee, and sat down to wait. Vanessa arrived like 15 minutes late. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept well, and she was wearing an old sweater that I recognized as one of mine that supposedly had been lost years ago. She sat across from me and started with small talk, asking how I was, how Chloe was, if there was a lot of work, and I cut her off, saying to get to the point, what had she called me for? Then she dropped this whole story on me about how one of the guys she'd been seeing, some idiot who apparently had promised her the world, had scammed her. He'd gotten like $10,000 from her with some excuse about an investment that turned out to be fake, and now she was basically broke, without a job because she'd quit thinking this guy was going to support her, and without a place to live because the friend she'd been staying with had kicked her out. She told me all this with tears in her eyes, expecting me to feel sorry for her, I guess. I sat there listening to her, feeling absolutely nothing, like zero empathy, zero sadness about her situation. I asked her why she was telling me all this, what she expected me to do about it, and she, with the most serious face in the world, told me she needed to move back into the house temporarily, just until she could get a job and save up a little money for her own place. She told me she could sleep on the couch, that she wouldn't be a bother, that she just needed a safe place to be. I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe the level of audacity. This woman had abandoned me, had abandoned our daughter, had spent our savings on her new life, had been with other men, and now that her plans had gone to hell, she wanted to come back like nothing. I told her no, absolutely not, that she'd made her decisions, and now she had to live with the consequences, that I wasn't her backup plan. She started crying harder, saying she had nobody else, that her family wasn't going to help her because they were disappointed in her, that her friends had turned their backs on her. And you know what? Part of me, that small part that still remembered the Vanessa I'd fallen in love with years ago, felt a little sorry. But then I thought about Chloe, about how she'd cried the first few weeks asking for her mom, about how I'd had to rebuild our life piece by piece, about how Vanessa hadn't even shown real remorse for anything she'd done. I told her I was sorry, she was in a difficult situation, but that wasn't my problem, that she'd destroyed our family through her own selfishness, and now she had to face the consequences. I got up from the table, left a $5 bill for my coffee, and left. Vanessa called out to me as I walked out, yelled that I was heartless. How could I be so cruel? But I kept walking without turning around. When I got to my car, I sat there for a moment, waiting to feel guilt or doubts about my decision, but all I felt was relief. Relief at having said no. Relief at having set boundaries. Relief at knowing I was finally prioritizing Chloe and myself over someone who clearly had never prioritized us. Now, like 3 weeks after that meeting, the divorce is almost finalized. Robert tells me that probably in another month or 2, everything will be ready. That I'm going to have full custody of Chloe, with Vanessa having supervised visitation rights if she ever decides to exercise them, which honestly I doubt. Vanessa hasn't contacted me again since that afternoon at the coffee shop. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and the truth is, I don't care anymore. Chloe is doing okay. Better than I expected considering everything. Her therapist says she's processing things in her own way, that she understands as much as a 5-year-old can understand that her mom isn't available right now, but that's not her fault. We've established a solid routine. She goes to school, plays with her friends. My parents spoil her probably more than they should, and at night we read books together before bed. Yesterday she asked me if her mommy was going to come back someday, and I told her the truth, that I didn't know, but that no matter what happened, she would always have a dad who loved her more than anything in the world. And I guess that's enough for now. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, if Vanessa is going to try to come back into Chloe's life in any meaningful way or if she's going to continue being this absent presence. But what I do know is that I did the right thing by refusing to be her lifeline, by setting boundaries and protecting my daughter from more pain. Sometimes I still wake up at night thinking about how we got to this point, wondering if there were signs I didn't see or things I could have done differently. But then I remember that Vanessa's decisions were just that. Her decisions, and I can't carry that responsibility. Life goes on, day by day, and I'm learning to be enough for Chloe and for myself. It's not the life I'd planned, definitely not the love story I thought I was living, but it's the life I have now, and I'm doing the best I can with it.